The United States Coast Guard was tasked with leading the search for the submersible Titan, missing on an expedition to the wreck of the Titanic.
When the Titan vanished beneath the Atlantic, the world mourned 5 explorers and moved on.
But sadly, we now know 90 minutes into its journey, 3 kilometers below the surface, Titan imploded. All 5 men on board were killed.
What no one knew was that the real horror had only just begun.
400 meters to go. We should be about 500 meters, 30. What was that?
In 2024, investigators uncovered evidence that shattered every assumption about how and why the sub imploded. Leaked images, ignored warnings, and chilling testimonies revealed a chain of decisions so reckless that it felt almost deliberate. The Titan disaster was not just a tragedy, it was a nightmare that should never have happened. The Bombshell 2024 hearing. The truth did not surface at sea, but inside a packed government hearing on September 16, 2024, more than a year after the Titan vanished beneath the waves. Reporters sat shoulder to shoulder. Families of the victims filled the front rows, their faces tight with grief. Flashbulbs flickered like lightning. No one was there for rumors. They were there for closure. For the first time, investigators revealed official photographs from the ocean floor. The first image appeared on the screen, the Titan's tail section, isolated on the dark seabed. There were no walls, no recognizable shape, only a twisted rear frame and scattered fragments of carbon fiber. The rest of the vessel was gone. The silence of that image hit harder than any sound. The ocean hadn't merely crushed the Titan, it had erased it.
The Titan submersible disaster in June 2023. It captures the sound at the very moment the vessel imploded, 1,000 meters below the surface.
Then the lights dimmed for a digital animation. A glowing map of the North Atlantic appeared, tracing the submersible's descent below its support ship, Polar Prince. The audience watched the glowing dots sink through the layers of blue, the timestamps and depth readings rolling upward in steady rhythm. Everything seemed routine until investigators froze the screen at one key log entry. Exactly 1 hour into the dive, the Titan crew had reported. Situation stabilized. 2 ballast weights released. The room went completely silent. Investigators explained what that meant. The Titan carried heavy external weights to help it descend, and when released, the sub should have begun to rise. Dropping both weights was a signal that something had gone wrong, perhaps a malfunction or imbalance, and that the crew was attempting an emergency ascent. But the ascent never came. As the animation resumed, the glowing dot continued to fall past the twilight zone, past the reach of sunlight into total darkness. Pressure numbers flashed on the side. 8,000 feet, 9,000, 10,000. At 10,978 feet, the icon blinked once and vanished. There was no distress signal, no alarm, just silence. That was the verified moment contact ended. The hull likely imploded in less than 1/10 of a second, too fast for the crew to even comprehend what was happening. When the lights came back on, many in the audience were crying. Others simply stared ahead, motionless. The hearing had answered one question: how it ended. The evidence proved the sequence beyond doubt: the descent, the ballast release, the sudden loss of contact, and the catastrophic collapse under crushing pressure. But what it revealed also led to something darker: why it happened at all, why the dive continued despite internal warnings, ignored safety protocols, and quiet dissent from within the company itself. And at the center of that rebellion was one man, the chief engineer who refused to go down. The chief engineer's mutiny. The world once believed the Titan dive was a mission backed by complete confidence. Every official statement, every photo, every public word painted the picture of a united team. But the 2024 hearing shattered that illusion when one name surfaced: Tony Neeson, OceanGate's chief engineer. He was the person who knew the Titan's body like a doctor knows a heartbeat. And yet, when the time came to board, he quietly stepped away. His decision came from something far heavier. He said he lacked trust in the people leading the mission. For a man whose job was to ensure life and safety under thousands of pounds of pressure, those words carried unbearable weight. Trust meant survival. The absence of it meant death waiting in silence. During his testimony, Neeson spoke without emotion, but the room felt the pain in every word. He described warning signs that had been ignored long before the world learned the name Titan. His voice grew softer when he recalled one moment that had haunted him ever since. It happened during testing in the Bahamas when the Titan was still new and unproven.
OceanGate, the company that made the underwater vehicle, had critically flawed safety practices.
The vessel had been struck by lightning while floating above the water. To most, that would sound like nothing more than a storm at sea. But to an engineer, it was the kind of warning nature gives only once. Lightning meant invisible trauma. It meant microfractures, tiny burns, and invisible scars buried inside the carbon fiber and electronics that no one could ever truly inspect again. The Titan's very shell depended on those materials holding under unimaginable pressure. A single unseen weakness was all it would take for the ocean to find its way in. Nissan believed that lightning strike had left internal damage that was never properly examined. He said it lived inside the vessel like a quiet time bomb. He had warned OceanGate about it long before the fatal dive. He had told Stockton Rush directly that the sub was not ready. Testing was incomplete. Engineering checks were unresolved.
OceanGate's lead engineer says he wouldn't get in Titan for a dive, even with CEO Stockton Rush at the helm of the sub.
The design had limits that no one wanted to admit. His message was firm and simple. The dive had to wait, but no one listened. When Nissan described his final decision, the room went still. He said refusing to go was the only choice left to him. He could not take part in a mission that he believed would end in tragedy. A chief engineer turning his back on his own creation was a louder warning than any alarm ever built into the Titan. His absence should have been enough to stop everything. It should have made someone pause, but the mission moved forward as if nothing had happened. While Nissan tried everything to stop the mission, another man, David Lockridge, also stepped up. The fired whistleblower and the waste of money. Lockridge worked as OceanGate's director of marine operations. His responsibility was simple and serious. Make sure the sub was safe, and make sure every person who entered it had a real chance to come back alive. He understood deep-sea pressure and failure points, and he understood what happened when warnings were ignored.
From David Lockridge, he's the Scottish submersible pilot who lost his job after telling the CEO it was too dangerous.
Lockridge submitted a formal engineering report that described the Titan as a dangerously experimental vessel. He stated that it had not gone through the testing required for a vessel diving to the Titanic's depth. At that depth, the ocean does not forgive mistakes. The pressure is heavy enough to crush metal like paper. Testing is life. He warned that the carbon fiber hull had never been proven at repeated extreme cycles, as well as the fact that the viewport rating was lower than the pressure it would face near the Titanic. He also pointed out that the company skipped traditional safety certifications. To him, these were not small issues or nice-to-have improvements, but survival issues. Lockridge also feared for the people going inside the sub. These were not trained Navy divers. These were wealthy tourists, scientists, and explorers who trusted the company. They believed they were stepping into a vessel designed with the highest level of care. Lockridge said plainly that they had no idea how risky the situation truly was. Then came the moment that stunned even the most experienced investigators. During his review, David Lockridge presented what he called the basics. He laid out a list of emergency supplies that any submersible operating at crushing depths should have carried: protective suits, spare oxygen tanks, compact food packs, and sealed water containers. Nothing extravagant or complex, just simple equipment meant to buy time if the Titan lost power or became trapped on the seafloor. He expected the team to take sides with him. Instead, he claimed he heard something that chilled him. Stockton Rush allegedly brushed the list aside and called the gear a waste of money. Investigators asked why, and Lockridge explained that Rush viewed the Titan as a vehicle designed only for short, controlled missions.
Stockton had no experience building submersible. None of them did. Hands down, I would never go in that thing.
In Rush's mind, failure was not an option worth planning for. Every extra pound of weight meant higher fuel costs and slower descent times. Every dollar spent on backup gear was a dollar taken from innovation. To Lockridge, that reasoning exposed everything. It showed a mindset that saw safety as optional and human survival as a distraction from progress. The Titan was not being treated as a vessel of life, but as a statement of ambition. And in that moment, Lockridge understood the terrible truth. They were preparing for a mission that planned for success, but not for survival. That was the breaking point. Lockridge warned that if the sub ever became stranded or damaged, the people inside would have nothing. He believed the vessel was not ready, and he believed the passengers were walking toward danger without knowing it. Instead of being thanked, Lockridge was fired. His dismissal sent a message inside the company that speaking up was not rewarded. But the warnings did not stop at OceanGate's doors. Experts across the deep-sea world also saw danger ahead, and they tried to stop it before it was too late. 38 experts warn of tragedy. Before the Titan ever touched the ocean floor, a storm had already formed in science circles. 38 leading experts in deep-sea research and ocean exploration came together in a rare display of unity. Many of them were pioneers who had spent decades studying ocean pressure, vessel materials, and the dangerous physics at extreme depth. They understood risks that ordinary people could never imagine. These were the voices the world usually trusted when submarines, deep-sea missions, and underwater engineering were involved, and they all feared the same thing. They prepared a formal letter, signed and sealed with the weight of their reputations. This letter was sent straight to OceanGate's CEO, Stockton Rush. Their message urged him to slow down and follow known safety methods. They wrote that pushing technology without proper testing could end in disaster. Their tone showed concern, not rivalry. They wanted the dream of deep-sea tourism to succeed, but they also wanted everyone to come back alive. The main warning centered on Rush's unusual approach. He had built the Titan in a way many engineers felt was too experimental. He often spoke in public about breaking rules and moving faster than traditional sub-designers.
If you want to go forward, you press forward. If you want to go back, you go back. Turn left, turn right, go down, go up.
He dismissed certified safety checks, claiming innovation required freedom. His words sounded bold and visionary to some, but to experts, they sounded reckless. In the letter, the experts highlighted one serious issue. Rush refused to seek traditional safety certification for the Titan. Certification is a long and expensive process, but it exists to protect lives. According to him, such rules slowed innovation. The experts believed these rules existed because the ocean crushes anything that fails, and his refusal increased danger in a dramatic way. They stressed that metal and composite materials behave differently under enormous pressure, and even the smallest flaw could crack, peel, or collapse under the weight of the deep sea. The letter ended with a stark message. If OceanGate continued without proper safety practices, the result could be tragic. OceanGate received the same warning, yet Rush chose to proceed. After all, people were willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for the chance to see history with their own eyes. Many believed the adventure was safe. They trusted not just the technology and the company. They trusted the ocean would let them return. The warnings were ignored, the Titan descended, and tragedy followed. And it made many wonder what really happened in those final moments below the surface. The soft landing, a theory of a painless end. Soon after the tragedy, someone else who had been close to the mission spoke up. It was Tim Caton, a crew member who worked on the Polar Prince support ship. Instead of stirring fear or dragging the spotlight, he tried to bring peace to grieving families. Caton shared a theory he strongly believed in that he felt explained what happened in the sub's very last moments.
Suleiman was close to the last to going in, and when he came up, I grabbed him by the back of his flotation device, pull him and make sure he's not gonna go sliding off into the water, and I helped him get in. I helped him get into the sub, and then I said, have a good dive.
According to him, the passengers experienced no panic, no fear, and no pain. He said the end came before anyone could even understand what was going on. Caton believed the implosion happened instantly. He described it as faster than a blink, happening in a fraction of a millisecond.
This was a moment in time when their sub was there, and then it was not.
In his view, the Titan did not shake or creak in warning. He believed there was no time for suffering, as the passengers did not feel crushing pressure, and they did not struggle for air. Many people believed that the Titan's thick viewport window had shattered under pressure. The idea created a terrifying image of glass cracking, a fracture spreading, and the ocean rushing in. But investigator and materials expert Paul Caton disagreed. He explained that the window itself was not the weak point. The failure likely began where the acrylic window met the titanium hull, the narrow ring of sealing material designed to keep water out. At nearly 12,000 feet below the surface, even the smallest imperfection can become fatal. The difference in how those materials expand and contract under pressure can strain the joint over time. Caton believed the seal at that junction gave way first. Once it failed, water would have entered at supersonic speed. There would have been no gradual leak, no warning, and no time to react. The implosion that followed would have happened in less than a blink. The enormous pressure outside crushed the entire vessel inward instantly, leaving no trace of its original shape. To the investigators, that single point of failure explained everything. The sudden loss of contact, the missing hull, and the silence that followed. Caton also explained something many had pointed to as a sign of trouble. Before contact was lost, the Titan dropped its weighted ballast system. Most observers thought this meant the crew had tried to rise quickly, which pointed to panic inside the sub. But Caton rejected that idea, saying that the ballast release was not an emergency action. He believed it was part of a planned move to slow the descent and help the sub settle gently near the Titanic wreck site. In his mind, the crew was calmly carrying out routine steps, not fighting for survival. His theory described a peaceful scene. According to him, the passengers were likely excited and talking quietly about the dive. They may have been reviewing their viewing plan or simply sitting quietly, waiting to see one of the most famous shipwrecks in history. There was no time for distress, no time for fear, or time for realization. If Caton was right, everything ended before a single heartbeat could pass. This idea brought comfort to many families and supporters. It offered a picture of peace rather than chaos, helping some people sleep at night now they believed their loved ones did not suffer. Still, not everyone accepted this view. Another side soon rose to challenge it. Experts began to present a darker and more disturbing picture of what the crew might have faced in those final seconds. A lawsuit soon pushed back with force, arguing that the truth was far worse, and that the final moments inside the Titan were filled with fear and horror. They knew the lawsuit's terrifying claim. Paul-Henri Nargeolet, the famous French Titanic explorer, had been one of the victims of the Titan. His family believed a very different version of the final moments, and they did not paint a calm picture. They filed a lawsuit that argued the passengers did not slip away quietly. According to them, the men inside the Titan knew exactly what was happening, and they felt fear before the end came. The lawsuit focused on a technical system that had been part of the Titan. The sub had an acoustic safety system, and this system was supposed to listen for stress inside the hull, especially the carbon fiber structure that formed the body of the vessel. If the hull began to fail or crack under deep-sea pressure, the system was designed to detect those noises and give a warning. The family argued that this system would not have failed quietly. If the hull started breaking down, the men would have heard warning sounds before the final collapse. Their claim was chilling. Titan made it deep enough for the hull to weaken, and as the pressure squeezed the sub, the carbon fibers began to snap. These sounds would not have been soft. They would have been sharp, unsettling cracks echoing through the small cabin. According to the lawsuit, the system would have detected it, and alarms would have sounded, telling the crew something was going very wrong. In that moment, the men would have realized that they were in deadly danger. The lawsuit also argued that the ballast drop was not a calm, routine step. They believed it was a sign of panic as the crew had tried to rise rapidly because they knew the hull was failing. The ballast release, in their view, was a desperate attempt to reach the surface before the sub fully collapsed. The central claim of the lawsuit was simple but devastating. The passengers were conscious, aware, and terrified. Instead of peace, there was dread. Instead of quiet, there were alarms and snapping sounds. According to this view, the final seconds inside the Titan were filled with panic, not calm acceptance. The men knew they were facing death, and there was nothing they could do. This theory struck hard as it challenged the comforting idea of an instant end. It ignited arguments among experts, families, and the public. Which version was true? The peaceful but sudden one, or the horrifying one? As OceanGate collapsed under legal pressure and public anger, the debate continued to grow. The truth of those final moments may never be fully known, but the disaster left a trail of painful lessons, forgotten warnings, and chilling consequences that now shape the future of deep-sea exploration. A new sub and a director's warning. After the explosion of public anger, lawsuits, and expert criticism, OceanGate reached its final day. On July 6, 2023, the company officially shut down, and all operations ceased. What had once been praised as the future of private deep-sea travel was gone. The Titan disaster had not only taken 5 lives, it had erased the very company that built the vessel and left behind a haunting question that still echoes in the world of exploration. How could it have happened when so many warnings were given? Yet, even as the wreck of the Titan rested silently on the ocean floor, a new chapter began to take shape. American billionaire Larry Connor stepped forward with an announcement that stunned many. He revealed plans for a new mission to the Titanic wreck site. His purpose was not to repeat the past, but to prove something essential. Deep-sea travel could be done safely if science and discipline were placed above ego. Connor is building a new submersible named Triton, estimated to cost around $20 million. But its true value lies not in its price tag or its modern design. It lies in its certification. Every part of Triton would undergo independent testing, pressure simulations, and third-party inspection before it ever touched the sea. The project's goal was to restore faith in exploration and to show that technology built with humility could reach the same depths that destroyed the Titan. Around this time, Titanic director James Cameron re-entered the public conversation. For decades, Cameron had explored the Titanic wreck himself in fully certified submersibles. He was not only a filmmaker, but one of the few people on Earth who had repeatedly descended to those depths and returned safely. Long before the tragedy, he had warned about the Titan's experimental design and the risks of ignoring proven engineering limits. Researchers later pointed out one final and haunting coincidence. The name Titanic was inspired by the Titans of ancient Greek mythology, giants who defied the gods and were cast down into the depths. The Titan sub shared their name and their fate, sinking to the same graveyard of steel where the great ship lay. It was a chilling reminder that in both myth and reality, pride always falls the hardest. What do you think about the way the Titan sub crashed? Comment down below.